Let's jump on in and take a look at FreshCrumbs. FreshCrumbs is a way to manage markers inside of Adobe After Effects and also navigate to those markers very fast, very efficiently. So here in the window, we can see all of our markers in this project. And here in this drop-down, we can see there are a total of 7. Now, this has been tested with projects that have over 1,000 markers, and the performance is surprisingly really good. So in this drop-down, we can quickly filter out the different markers that we have here. And we have comp markers. You can see that we have 1 comp marker in this project. We have 6 layer markers. We have a fresh crumb marker and a fresh slice marker. These are 2 types of markers that are specific to FreshCrumbs. These are generated using FreshCrumbs, and they're great for marking specific points of interest. A lot of times when I use markers in projects, they're just temporary. They're not really anything that I'm going to need later on, but FreshCrumbs and fresh slices are specific types of markers that I know I'm going to want to recall in the future. So we'll take a closer look at those in a moment. And don't worry, even though I say that they're specific to FreshCrumbs, they're still just After Effects markers, so you don't have to worry about compatibility. If you pass this project off to somebody else, they're going to just see it as a marker, and you don't have to worry about breaking anything. Fresh bread is just a combination of the FreshCrumbs and fresh slices together. And then AE marker, this is markers that are just pure After Effects markers. And so if we just click on one of the items from the drop-down, it'll filter out the list here. And so it makes it really easy to see specific types of filters really quickly. The list can be changed here. Right now it's on basic. We can toggle it to advanced. So on advanced, we have a lot more of a breakdown of the different types of markers, and we even have colors in here as well. So if you use colors a lot with your markers, if you want for a specific maybe layer type, you'll be able to see those here, and they only show up if they're actually present in your project. If I come down here to like this start marker here, this is just an After Effects one. If we change this to, let's just change it to not green. I already have a green one, let's say fuchsia, and we refresh, the list here changes as well. So it's a dynamic list, and like I said, it only shows the colors if they're actually present here. We have a solo button here. This is really nice because I found that as I started using FreshCrumbs, I wanted to be able to isolate layers as well, so I thought it would be a nice tool to build into FreshCrumbs. If I come down here, let's select these orange layers here, and if I toggle this on, the default method is to isolate it in the timeline and in the comp, so we only see those specific layers. And then if we click it again, we'll return to our original state. As you can see, if we hover over, Alt will toggle the timeline view. So I see all of my layers still in the comp, but they're only isolated in the timeline. We'll click it to go back. And then we also have Control to toggle the comp view. So here, we only see those layers in the comp, but we see all of our layers in the timeline. Let's take a look at navigating. So there's a couple of different ways to navigate to your markers. We can just double click a marker up here in the FreshCrumbs window, and it'll navigate to that marker. Another way we can do it is if we select a range of markers. Well, let me back up. So this marker here is in a different comp. So if I double click it, it'll open up the comp for you. And it doesn't matter if the comp is already open in the timeline or not, it'll just open the comp for you, and so that makes it really easy to navigate throughout your project. So like I said, the other thing you can do is hold down Shift, and I'm going to select a range of layers here, and if I click Find, it's going to start at the topmost layer, but if we hover over this, we can see that Alt will go to the next marker, and Control will go to the previous. So if I hold down Alt, we can start clicking through, and it's going to jump through all those different markers, and then Control will go the opposite direction. You can also see that we have another mode here. Shift finds the closest to the CTI. Well, what does that mean? If I come down here in the timeline and I place my CTI right here and hold Shift and click, it's going to find the marker that was closest to the CTI, and it's also going to select it up here in FreshCrumbs. So if I come right here, deselect everything, and hold down Shift and Find, it'll find the closest one. Now the reason why I deselected everything is because if I select like this purple layer, and move the CTI in this location, if I hold down Shift and find, it's going to find the marker closest to the CTI that is on that layer. Makes it really nice if you're not really having to hunt for markers. Just select it really quick, and if I want to find it up here, I'll just hold down Shift and find, and there it is, and it makes it really quick and easy. Okay, we obviously have a search box here, and so if I just say like second, we can see that we have our one layer show up, and it's right here. We can double click it and get to it really quickly. So obviously you can see that this searches in real time here as we just start typing. So if I type in third, and we can do Boolean operations here. So if I say or second, we can get both the layers. We can also say, maybe I want to say second. Oh, we got to be able to spell right though. Second and yellow. Okay. Now it doesn't say yellow up here, but one of the fields, I have it turned off right now, is the marker color, and we can see that the marker color is yellow. So it'll search not only the marker name, but also the properties of the marker. So we can click clear. We also have a project button here, and if we toggle it, let me come over here to comp 2. Right now it's showing everything for the entire project. If I click it to active, it's only going to show the markers in the active comp. And so if I jump back over to comp 1 and we do a refresh, it's only showing the markers in this actual comp here. We can click back to project and it'll show all of them. So it's a nice way to keep things specific to the comp that you're actually working on. And I'll show you in the settings here later on, you can actually get this to auto refresh as well. So you don't have to use the refresh button if you don't want. Okay, let's take a look at creating a crumb. So like I said, a crumb is just really an After Effects marker with a little extra piece of information so that it shows up differently up here. And we can just click on the bread box, make sure nothing is selected up here. And if I click on it, create fresh crumb. And so we can just say hello. You can obviously set your marker color here. And then we can also add an additional description here. So anything you type in the first box will show up on the marker. Anything you type in the second box will only show up in the FreshCrumbs panel up here, will not show on the marker. So let's just say this is a test, and we'll hit enter. And so you can see we have hello here, and then we have hello, this is a test. And so we see all that text up here. Now, if I have this selected, and if I hover over this, you can see that it says create edit. So with it selected, if I click on the breadbox button, we can come in here and edit the marker here. So maybe I want to get rid of that, and we'll say okay. And so we went ahead and updated it. Now, if we double click it, we can also edit here. You can see that we have these 3+ symbols here, and that is the marker for a fresh crumb. So if it's a fresh crumb, you can make the modification here, but you just don't want to delete those symbols there. So that it remains a fresh crumb. Now, since I edited it natively here in After Effects, I gotta click on refresh and in order for it to refresh up here. But if I edit here, I don't have to refresh it. It's gonna update automatically, okay? All right, so that is a crumb, and like I said, there's not a whole lot different than a standard marker. Now, we also have, if we take a look, we have create a slice. Now, you may have noticed if I double click first here, it's selecting all these layers at the same time when I double click on first. If I go to second, it's selecting all these layers because these are slices, and a slice is where you're selecting multiple layers and it's marking them all as one group. So this is really nice. I use this all the time because in projects, a lot of times I'm working with different groups of layers at once. So I might come in here and say, let me double click third, and then I go ahead and solo this because I'm gonna work on just these layers, do whatever it is I need to do, and I'll turn that off. And then I can go on to the next group, and it makes it really fast. And the nice thing too is we can have layers be part of multiple slices. So there's some other tools out there that would only allow layers to be part of one group, but with slices you can have them be in as many groups as you want. So how do we actually do that? Let's take a look. Let's come over here and we'll select these two layers, and with nothing selected up here, we're going to hold down Control. And so then we get this create slice window. And so we can select the marker color. Obviously, we can select the slice name. Here you can see on the text we have coming soon. So I'm just going to say coming soon. You can change your layer color for all the layers that you have selected. So that makes it really nice if you want to change them right here. I'll just say brown, why not? And we can actually, well, let me back up. Let's just make a slice and then we'll take a look at the other options. So we'll say, okay. So now we have coming soon. We see coming soon, and this is a slice. And we can double click it and it shows up. Let me put this on active. And we have FreshCrumbs. That is this slice here. So now we have two slices. Now, one thing that we can also do is we can nest slices together. So we have kind of like a subcategory. So if I want coming soon, these two layers to be nested underneath FreshCrumbs up here, I can select coming soon. Right here we have nest. I'm going to click on nest, and then I'm going to double click the layer, or I'm sorry, the slice that we want to be the parent. And so now these are kind of grouped together. So if I double click FreshCrumbs, it's going to select the parent and the child. If I double click on just coming soon, it'll select just the coming soon. And if I double click on FreshCrumbs, it'll select everything. Now, we can also select just FreshCrumbs by itself, even though it's a parent. If I hold down Alt and double click, it'll select just the parent. So again, this is another way of organizing a project. For me, I really enjoy being able to group things together into different categories and have subcategories. It makes it pretty nice. So again, if you want just the parent, hold down Alt and double click, and you'll get just the parent. Now you'll see the marker here also shows the parent chain here. We have FreshCrumbs, and then we have coming soon, letting you know that the marker name for this slice here is coming soon, but the parent is FreshCrumbs. Okay, now we can also unnest this. So if we hover over the N here and hold down N, we'll unnest it, and we can see that the marker changes here. Let me come in here and delete this slice, and let's redo this and create a new slice. So I'm going to hold down Control, click, and let's say that this is coming soon again, and I'm going to just change the color to blue. Now, right now we can nest this automatically in the dialog box here. So we can just say FreshCrumbs, and it's already on nest. We can say OK. And so when this is created, it's already nested underneath FreshCrumbs. So let's come in here and delete that, and let's try this again. So let's create a slice again, and this time we'll call it coming soon again. And actually, we don't need to put a name in there, because what we're going to do is, instead of creating a slice, we're going to click the button and we're going to change it to add a slice. So when we add a slice, we don't need text, because it's just going to be part of an existing slice. And so in this drop down, it's going to show existing slices inside this comp. So let's go ahead and click on FreshCrumbs and say OK. And so now, if we come over here and double click FreshCrumbs, these two layers are part of this slice. And if we have layers that are part of a slice, we can also remove them. So if we come over here, we can add or remove layers from a slice. So you can see that Alt is removed. So I'm going to hold down Alt, and it says, do we want to remove two layers from FreshCrumbs slice? I'll say yes. Do we want to remove the slice layer color? So maybe if all these are the same color, maybe we'd want to revert them to a different color. I'm going to say no. And so now if I come up here and double click FreshCrumbs, you can see that we're back to just our original 3 layers. So another way you can add layers to A slice is if you have a slice selected up here and we have layers selected, we could come over to the button and it says add layer to slice. So we can click it, add 2 layers to 1 slice, FreshCrumbs. We'll say yes. And then do we want to match the slice layer color? So if we want them all to be the same color, I'll say yes. And so if we double click up here, we can see that they're all part of the slice. And we can come up here again, make sure it's selected, hover over the button. We can see that Alt is remove. So we'll remove again. And we're going to remove two layers, yes. To remove slice color, yes. And so it's going to randomly assign a color just so that we know that it's not part of that slice. And you don't have to, you could say no there. So that's how slices work. We can also convert types. So I don't know if this is a useful feature or not, but if I select a slice here, and if we hover over breadbox, we can hold down Shift and convert it. And it says, do we want to convert 1 slice to crumbs? We'll say yes. And then instead of having all these the same color, do we want to randomly colorize each layer? We'll say yes. And so then that slice becomes crumbs. So now we just have 3 markers and they're all different colors. And we can see that reflected up here. So the other thing that I've done, let's go ahead and select all these and I'm going to delete them. The other thing that I've done is I've created helper scripts so that you can create slices and crumbs and some other features without having to use the panel, right? I found that I don't want to have to click buttons up here all the time. Keyboard shortcuts are much faster. So with these layers selected, I've set up my keyboard shortcut for a slice or a crumb. Well, let's show that. So if I select one layer and I do Control G, it's going to allow me to set a crumb. So we'll just say hello again, or let's just say fresh, and we'll hit enter. And so that's our crumb. But then if I select more than one layer and hit Control G, now it's going to allow me to create a slice. And we have all the same options, obviously, as always. We can select our marker color, layer color. We can nest it or add to a slice. We'll say OK. I have a helper script to select all the layers in a slice. So I have it set up for Shift G, and it'll select everything that is in a slice. So if I just select one layer that's in a slice, Control G, it's going to select all the layers in that slice. If I select multiple layers in different slices and Control G, it's going to say, hey, do you want to select all these slices? We'll say OK. But as you can see, select, deselect, Shift G, too many shortcuts. We can select just individual slices in case we weren't aware that they were part of multiple slices. The other thing too is if you hold down Control, it'll let you, so if I have all slices, if I select everything here, if I hold down Control, it'll select just the single box that I'm clicking on, and maybe I need some helper text here. Okay, but Control will let you select just one, and that way we can isolate just one of those slices. The other thing that you can do too is I have a helper script for, so let me go Shift G to select this slice. I have a helper script for the solo action as well. So Shift I is what I have it set up for. And for the helper script, it's going to isolate both the timeline and the comp window. So Shift I again to return back to our normal state. Okay, one last thing we should take a look at are the settings. So if I hover over the toggle here, you can see that if we do Shift, we can look at the settings. So here you can show what data is shown in the list box here. So if I click on everything and say OK, we can see that we have the name of the marker, we have the type of marker, the comp that it's in, and the marker color. You can select your default marker color. Hide labels, I have it on always. If we put this on never, it's going to actually name what these are. So name, layer type, layer, and so on. It gets a little bit lengthy when we have it on that. So you can put it on only first, and it's going to hide the first label, and then all the other ones are visible. Search is on real time, so it's going to search as you type, but you can make it so it won't search until you hit enter key, which is helpful when you have a lot of markers. It can get a little bit slow on the search, so that's why we have an option for enter key. Okay, we also have a text filter here, so if there's certain markers you don't want to show up here. For example, if I come in here and I set a bunch of empty markers in here and refresh, they're going to show up in our list, and obviously we can filter them out here, but if we don't want them to show up at all, one thing that we can do is if we hover over the box here, you can see that using asterisk blank means that it'll filter out anything that doesn't have any text. So anything that's blank, we won't see. And then we can add other things too, just by adding a comma. So maybe if I want to get rid of start, we'll say okay. And now that start marker won't show up because it's in that filter list. And this works out really nice. I've used some tools where it generates a lot of markers in the creation of different assets. And so I just add it to this filter to filter them out because I don't want to see them at all. And then auto refresh, we can put this on. So every time you hover over the box, it'll refresh. Now, when we have it on project, right now it's not doing anything because it's showing all the markers, but when I have this on active, it's obviously changing because our timeline is changing here. But when you have a lot of markers, that might get a little bit slow to refresh all the time. So refresh on is going to refresh every time you mouse over the box, but there's an option here for active only, so that when this button here is on active is the only time it'll actually update. Okay, I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully I covered it all. That is the feature set. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.